The party was still going. String lights were glowing. People were laughing. Someone was cutting the cake. And my father was standing in front of 40 guests, casually handing my brother the keys to the home I had spent $30,000 rebuilding, with a smile on his face like he was doing me a favor. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there holding my drink, feeling something go very quiet inside me. Not sadness. Not shock. Something colder than both of those. Because in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to give that backyard a single scene to remember me by. Instead, I pulled out my phone, smiled politely at the ant standing next to me, and I started making plans. And 48 hours later, when my brother walked into that apartment for the first time as the new owner, he called my father screaming. Because the home I had built, I had taken it back. Every single piece of it. My name is Avery, and if you want to know exactly how I did it and what happened to my family after, stay with me. Because this story is only just getting started. I was born 6 minutes before my brother Carter. 6 minutes. That's it. That's the whole gap between us, biologically, legally, technically. But in our family, those 6 minutes might as well have been 6 years. 6 lifetimes. 6 completely different childhoods. Because I came first, breathing fine, healthy, no complications. And Carter came second. Smaller, a little fragile at birth, needing a little extra attention in those first hours. And somehow, from that moment forward, that became the story our entire family told about us. Carter was the one who needed protecting. Carter was the one who needed extra love, extra patience, extra everything. And me? I was the one who could wait. I could always wait. Growing up, I watched this play out in ways so small and so consistent that by the time I was old enough to name it, it had already shaped everything about me. When Carter forgot his homework, my mother left work early to bring it to his school. One single time, I forgot mine, and she looked at me with this calm, almost disappointed expression and said, "Avery, actions have consequences." When Carter brought home a B-, my dad took us all out to dinner to, quote, keep his confidence up. When I made the honor roll, 3 years straight, my mom glanced at the paper on the counter and said, "That's nice, honey. Don't leave it there." That was it. That was all. I stopped expecting celebration pretty early. Instead, I became useful. I cleared dishes. I remembered everyone's birthdays. I helped with groceries, with cooking, with the kinds of quiet, invisible labor that keeps a family running, while Carter sat in the living room getting praised for opening a stuck jar. I am not saying my parents were cruel people. They loved us both, I believe that. But love, when it's uneven, teaches you things. It teaches you that some people's needs are emergencies, and some people's needs are interruptions. It teaches you to make yourself smaller, quieter, more efficient. It teaches you to be grateful for whatever is offered, because asking for more feels dangerous. That lesson would cost me more than I ever imagined. When my grandmother passed away, she left behind a small apartment on the east side of town. It wasn't glamorous. The hallway smelled like old carpet. The windows rattled when trucks drove by outside. The bathroom ceiling had a water stain the size of a welcome mat. But it had potential. Good bones, as people say. And for nearly 2 years, my parents let it sit completely empty. Then one Sunday dinner, my father folded his hands on the table and looked at me with an expression I had learned to recognize over many years. The expression that meant he was about to offer me something, and that offering would come with conditions I wouldn't fully understand until later. "That apartment is just sitting there," he said. "And you're spending so much on rent, Avery. It doesn't make sense." My mom smiled. "You could live there. We'd only charge you 3/4 of market rate." Carter, sitting across from me, barely looked up from his phone. "That place is basically a disaster zone," he said, with the casual confidence of someone who had never had to worry about what rent cost. I should have asked for paperwork. I should have asked whose name was on the deed, whose name would be on any lease, what would happen if things changed. I should have remembered that in my family, generosity had always arrived wearing conditions underneath it. But I was tired. Tired of renting spaces that never felt like mine. Tired of putting my furniture in rooms where nothing matched, where the walls were someone else's color, where my key was temporary by definition. I wanted one place where I actually belonged. So I moved in. And then I got to work. That first winter, a storm hit and brown water started dripping through the bathroom ceiling. I called a plumber. I paid for it myself. The kitchen cabinets were warped and pulling off the walls. I sanded them, patched them, repainted every single one, replaced all the hardware. The floors were scratched and dull, worn down by decades of use. I hired a local contractor and watched every plank of new hardwood go down. Over 18 months, I put $30,000 into that apartment. My savings, my overtime hours, my carefully tracked receipts at 9 p.m. on weekday nights when I was too exhausted to cook but too determined to stop. I kept everything. Every receipt, every contractor invoice, every bank statement, every before and after photo, organized in a folder on my laptop labeled simply, apartment renovation. Some quiet, careful part of me had already learned that trust without documentation is just a polite way to get taken from. I still paid my parents every single month. On time. Without complaint. I still hosted family holidays in that apartment. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. My mother would stand in the kitchen I had fully rebuilt and say to relatives, "Isn't it lovely that we were able to give Avery somewhere affordable?" And I would smile and refill someone's glass and say nothing, because that was what I had always done. Then Carter got engaged. His fiancée, Brooke, was warm and polished and immediately beloved by my entire family. My mother called her the daughter I always dreamed of after their second meeting. My father started making plans, talking about helping Carter build something real. The engagement party was held in my parents' backyard on a Saturday evening in late spring. String lights hung between the fence posts. Folding tables covered the patio. There was pasta salad and barbecue, and a sheet cake with "Congratulations, Carter" and Brooke written in blue frosting. I stood near the back sliding door in a blue dress I'd bought on clearance, holding a cup of lemonade, trying not to notice that my mother had introduced me to 3 different relatives as Carter's sister, not by my name, just as his sister. I was background detail at my own family's party. Then my father tapped his fork against his glass. The yard went quiet. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Carter put his arm around Brooke and smiled the way he always smiled when he knew something good was coming to him. And I felt the back of my neck go cold. My father reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. Not a card. A document envelope. The kind that holds paperwork. My mother glanced at me for half a second. Barely a glance, really, more like the flicker of someone deciding not to look, and then looked away. That half-second told me everything. "Your mother and I wanted to give you something meaningful as you begin your life together," my father said, voice warm and proud. "Grandma's apartment. We're signing it over to Carter and Brooke." He paused. Then he turned to me, casual as someone mentioning a change in dinner plans. "Avery, you'll need to move out so they can start fresh." The yard didn't react the way you'd think. Nobody gasped. Nobody looked uncomfortable for more than a second. Brooke's mother pressed her hand to her heart. A few people started clapping. Carter took the envelope from my father's hand and grinned, this wide, easy grin. Like none of what had just happened was the slightest bit complicated. Like I wasn't standing right there. Like $30,000 hadn't come out of my account. Like I hadn't rebuilt every room in that apartment with my own time, my own money, my own hands. I didn't cry. I want you to understand that. I stood there in that backyard, holding my lemonade, and I felt something shift inside me, something very quiet and very final. Not anger, not yet. Something colder than anger. Clarity. And then my phone buzzed. A text from Carter. Sent while he was standing less than 15 feet away from me, still smiling. "Hey, we're going to need you out within 2 days. We want to start moving things in. Thanks for understanding." 2 days. Not 2 weeks. Not a month. Not the legally required notice that any landlord, including your own parents, is required to give a tenant in this state. 2 days. Thanks for understanding. I read it twice. Then I put my phone in my pocket, set my lemonade cup down on the nearest table, said a quiet goodbye to an aunt near the door, and drove home. To the home I had built. For the last time as someone who lived there without a plan. That night I sat at my kitchen table, the one I had refinished myself, the one that had taken 3 weekends and 2 coats of stain, and I opened my laptop. I opened the folder labeled Apartment Renovation. $30,000 of receipts. Invoices. Time-stamped bank transfers. Dated photographs. Before and after. Every room. Every surface. I called my best friend Jade, who had listened to years of these family stories with the patience of someone who genuinely loved me. I told her what happened. She was quiet for a long moment, and then she said, "Avery, you know what you have to do." I did. I also called a lawyer the next morning. I want to be honest about this part. I needed to know what I was legally allowed to do. The lawyer reviewed everything I had. The receipts. The payment history. The contractor invoices. The bank statements. She looked at me across her desk and said that I had a strong case for unjust enrichment, meaning, the law recognizes that when someone puts significant money into a property based on a reasonable expectation of continued use, and that expectation is pulled away without compensation, there are legal remedies available. She also told me something else. She told me that everything I had installed, the hardwood floors, the new cabinet hardware, the light fixtures, the bathroom fittings, everything that could be legally classified as a removable improvement rather than a structural one, I had the right to take back. Let me say that again clearly, because this matters. The floors I paid for. The fixtures I chose and installed. The hardware I selected and mounted. If it could be removed without causing structural damage to the property, it was mine. I thanked her. I paid her consultation fee. And I made a phone call to my contractor. I want to walk you through what happened over the next 48 hours because I think it's important to understand that this was not impulsive. This was not emotional. This was calm, legal, and thoroughly documented. I called my contractor, the same one who had done the floor installation. I explained the situation. He had 3 crew members available. I asked if they could come in 2 days. He said yes. I called a storage facility and reserved a unit. I spent the next evening going through every room with my phone, taking a fresh round of photographs and a video walkthrough, current condition of every improvement. Then I cross-referenced it against my original receipts to create a clean, organized record of every removable item I would be reclaiming. I didn't touch anything structural. I didn't damage anything. I didn't do a single thing outside what the lawyer had confirmed I was within my rights to do. I also contacted a tenant rights organization in my city just to make sure I understood the full scope of the situation. They confirmed that regardless of whether a formal lease had been signed, the length and nature of my occupancy, combined with my documented financial investment, gave me significant standing. My family had essentially acted as informal landlords, and the eviction notice, such as it was, had not followed proper legal procedure. 2 days was not legal notice under state law. I didn't waive any of that in my family's faces. I didn't call my father and argue. I didn't respond to Carter's text. I simply began. 2 days after the engagement party, the crew arrived at 7 in the morning. They were professional, efficient, and quiet. They brought the right tools. They worked room by room, carefully, methodically. The hardwood floors came up. Every plank, rolled and wrapped and loaded into the truck, going into my storage unit. The kitchen cabinet hardware, every handle, every hinge I had replaced, came off, boxed and labeled. The light fixtures I had selected and installed came down. The original fixtures, which I had kept in labeled boxes in the storage closet because I am, apparently, the kind of person who keeps everything, went back up in their place. The bathroom fittings I had upgraded. Same process. Out with mine, back with the originals. By 2 in the afternoon, the apartment was legally intact. No structural damage, nothing broken, but it looked exactly like it had looked the day I moved in. Gray, scratched subflooring where the hardwood had been. Sagging cabinets with bare screw holes where the hardware had been. The old light fixtures that buzzed slightly when you turned them on. The apartment my parents had described as somewhere affordable to give Avery. The apartment Carter had called basically a disaster zone. We were back to disaster zone. I did a final walkthrough. I took photographs of every single room, same angles as my originals. Clean, documented, time-stamped. Then I left my key on the kitchen counter, sent my father a brief, professional email explaining that I had vacated the property as requested, that I had removed the improvements I had personally funded, and that I had attached a full itemized list of those improvements with original purchase documentation for his records. I CC'd the lawyer. I did not write anything emotional. I did not explain myself. I did not ask for an apology. I just sent the list. $30,000 of improvements. Itemized. Documented. Gone. My father called me within 2 hours. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. I let it go again. Carter texted. What did you do to the apartment? The floors are gone? I did not respond. My mother called from a different number. She sometimes did that when she thought I was screening her, which I was. I let that go too. Eventually, my father left a voicemail that started calm and ended loud. The general shape of it was, how could I do this? This was a family property. I had no right. This was selfish and destructive. He couldn't believe I would behave this way. I listened to it once. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer with a note. She replied, noted. You followed every legal boundary. You're fine. What happened next unfolded over the following 2 weeks, and I want to be honest. It was not easy. It was not a clean, satisfying movie ending where everyone immediately sees the truth. Real life doesn't work that way. My aunt texted me to say that what I had done was petty. A cousin posted something vague on social media about family loyalty that was clearly directed at me. My mother sent me a letter, an actual handwritten letter, saying that she was deeply hurt by my choices and that she hoped I would reflect on what it means to be part of a family. I read it. I felt the complicated, heavy weight of it because these were still my parents, and there is a particular kind of pain that comes from realizing that the people who raised you have a version of you in their heads that doesn't match who you actually are, and that the gap between those two versions has been causing damage for years. I kept the letter. I also sent my mother a letter back. It was 3 pages long. I want to read you part of it, because I think it matters. Mom, I spent $30,000 making that apartment a home. I have every receipt, every photo, every bank statement. I did that because I believed, based on what you and Dad told me, that I had a stable place to live. I paid you every month. I hosted every holiday. I never complained. When you handed that apartment to Carter at his engagement party, in front of everyone, without any warning, without any conversation, and Dad told me I had 2 days to leave, I want you to understand what that felt like. Not just practically. Emotionally, it felt exactly like growing up in our house. Like Carter's needs were real and mine were interruptions. Like Carter's future was something to protect and mine was something to adjust around his. I love you. I want to have a relationship with you. But I need you to understand that what happened was not okay. And the fact that you're hurt by my response, but not by what caused it, is something I've been thinking about for a very long time. I sent it certified mail. She called me 4 days later. She cried. It was not a perfect conversation. She said things that were defensive, and then she said things that were honest. And by the end she said, quietly, I don't think we realized how differently we treated you. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if partial awareness is the same as not realizing. But I heard it. I wrote it down. And I let it be the beginning of something, even if I don't know yet what that something becomes. Here's what happened on the legal side, because I know people are going to ask. My lawyer sent a formal letter to my parents on my behalf, documenting the $30,000 in improvements and requesting compensation. Not out of anger, out of legal reality. The unjust enrichment claim was solid. The documentation was airtight. After 3 weeks of back and forth, my parents agreed to reimburse me $22,000. Not the full amount. My lawyer had told me a full recovery was unlikely, and I had already taken back what I physically could, but $22,000, paid in 2 installments, in exchange for my agreement not to pursue further legal action. I took it. Carter and Brooke moved into an apartment with gray subflooring, buzzing light fixtures, and bare cabinet screw holes. I heard through my aunt, the non-petty one, that Carter was, quote, furious. Good. I found a new apartment 3 weeks after the party. It's smaller. The rent is higher. The walls are a shade of beige. I haven't gotten around to painting yet. But my name is on the lease. My name only. And there is something about that. something I didn't fully understand until I was standing in that small, beige, officially mine apartment that feels more like home than any renovated floor ever did. I'm saving again. I'm building again. And this time, every decision I make about where I live and what I put into it will be based on one simple rule I should have applied a long time ago. My investment goes where my name is on the paper. There's something I've been thinking about since all of this happened. Something I keep coming back to. We are often taught that family loyalty means absorbing unfairness quietly, that making noise about being treated badly is the real betrayal, not the treatment itself. That if you love your family, you accept what they give you and you don't cause problems. But here's what I learned. Staying silent didn't protect my relationship with my family. It just protected their comfort. And those are two very different things. Advocating for myself, calmly, legally, with documentation, was the most honest thing I had ever done in that family. It was the first time I had ever shown them exactly who I was rather than who they needed me to be. And it turns out that's terrifying for everyone at first. But it is the only foundation on which anything real can actually be built. If you've ever been in a family where one person's needs always came before yours, where you waited and adjusted and made yourself smaller, I want you to know your needs were always real. They were always valid. And it is never too late to start treating them that way. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to advocate for yourself in a situation where you were expected to just stay quiet? What happened? I'm Velyra Payback. New stories drop every single day. If this one stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one.